And as always, thank you for having me. My name is Shiva. I'm the Technical Solutions Architect at HYCU. Been with the company for more than almost 4 years now, actually. And I basically started my career with backup and data protection back in 2007, and it's really a joy to see the evolution of backup and recovery to the state where we are right now. And this is exactly what I want to do. I know we don't have a lot of time. We just have 20 minutes per speaker, and I'm going to do my best to share the kind of innovation that we have for today's hybrid cloud and public cloud demands when it comes to backup and recovery. And again, I expect the session to be extremely interactive. Please don't hold back if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them. So with that being said, let's get started. Now, I'd like to start this session with one of the most common backup challenges that we notice day to day, especially with our existing and even new customers that we face. One of the things that we always see is the true potential of realizing, those cost savings, especially when you have a solution that remains invisible. Like, what I mean by that is when you especially have an enterprise-ready management or a backup solution. Most of the customers always complain about the amount of time it takes for them to deploy, maintain, and especially during maintenance windows or upgrades, and troubleshoot any failures. And the amount of time these people spend on a given management task is something that turns out to be one of the most biggest pain points. The reason why I say that is because every time when we talk to administrators, architects who basically get their hands dirty in working with their solutions, or even IT directors or VP, one of the biggest things that they always complain is these solutions are so complex that more than 25 to 30% or even 40% of their time basically get wasted in maintaining these solutions, while these solutions are basically meant to make their lives easier. It's totally counterintuitive. The second thing that I want to showcase is the fact that people basically try to reuse the same architecture that was designed decades ago, right? And I cannot blame those specific products beyond a certain point, because re-architecting an entire solution is not an easy task, especially when you have a tight roadmap of supporting existing platforms, existing features. You basically have this bloatware with multiple features created on top of each other with an architecture that is more than a decade old, and that is the best case scenario. I've worked with solutions where the architecture is more than 20 or even 30 years old, right? So that turns out to be a huge challenge, especially when you try to adapt that architecture into a cutting edge platform like a public cloud hyperscaler like Azure, or even your on-prem infrastructure, right? And the third most common challenge that we see is being prepared for disasters, or more specifically ransomware attacks. And I think this is something that I touch upon every Angelbeat session when it comes to ransomware attacks. I mean, it's not a question of if your organization will be attacked. It's simply a matter of when. And that is the new norm today. I mean, there was a time when ransomware attacks were focused on specific verticals, but now any vendor or any user can be is vulnerable to such attacks and can be targeted for a heinous attack. So with that being said, let's basically get down to one of the most common requirements. Based on these challenges, these are the most common requirements that we see amongst our customers, be it existing or our future customers. Number one is ensuring that you basically achieve a backup strategy in such a way that is relevant to your current technology, but at the same time ensure that you don't burn too much amount of cash. I mean, I always believe that backups should be backups, especially backups or backup infrastructure, resides within the cost-efficient sector, because your backup infrastructure shouldn't be more expensive than your production environment, and your backup infrastructure should be cost-efficient. Notice the word cost-efficient or cost-effective, because I don't want to compromise a solution being cheap with lackluster data protection, because you need to have this data protection solution effective enough to protect you against human error, like accidental deletions or data corruption, or even protecting you from bad actors like insider attacks, or even ransomware attacks. The other thing that I have to, or that the other requirement that you've seen is to ensure that you have this one common UI for a hybrid cloud situation, especially when you're dealing with an existing on-prem infrastructure and when customers are adopting to Azure. We've constantly seen customers hosting workloads both on their on-prem and on Azure environment. That is pretty much the majority of customers that we work with. There are also customers who leverage Azure as a DR target, but the point here is it's always a hybrid cloud environment, and how do you basically deliver a solution that has a seamless look and feel for both your on-prem or your enterprise cloud infrastructure and your public cloud infrastructure. I'm sorry, I muted myself, my bad. The third point I wanted to highlight here is leveraging the underlying public cloud infrastructure. Ensure that you basically utilize every security, every data protection capability that is already available with your public cloud infrastructure, like integrating with your public cloud's security policies or your Azure's Active Directory to inherit all of those security policies, or leveraging your Azure Blob steering policies for better cost efficiency, or leveraging your Azure Blob's worm capability for ransomware protection for backup immutability. Like, you need to have a backup solution that is fully integrated with your public cloud infrastructure to ensure that it basically leverages, and it basically ensures that you're getting the best out of your investment, right? And last but not the least, backups shouldn't take too much amount of your time. A best solution is only realized when it's truly invisible. It should be in a way that people shouldn't even notice about its existence, because let's face it, at the end of the day, backup and recovery, especially backup management solutions, should be deployed just once, and that's it. Our ideal goal is to ensure that once our customer sets up a backup solution, he or she should never log into that solution unless and otherwise they need to do some restores. So that is how a solution needs to be designed, because you shouldn't be wasting your time maintaining or managing a solution. You should be basically focused on other high valued tasks rather than focusing on working with solutions that's supposed to make your life easier. Okay, so with that being said, let's take a look at the whole Azure in a hybrid cloud environment, right? Especially when it comes to our customers or even our prospects that we work with, we actually see one of the most common use cases are doing backups to cloud, especially when it comes to their on-prem infrastructure. They would like to have their on-prem backups being done directly to a public cloud infrastructure that basically helps them to be more cost efficient. And at the same time, it also reduces the whole backup footprint, where they don't have to leverage any on-prem backup device beyond a certain point. So that is one of the biggest use cases, doing backups directly to Azure Blob. The second use case that we see is basically migrating their on-prem workloads to Azure, and also leveraging Azure as a DR target, especially when it comes to leveraging Azure as a DR target. Given the fact that Azure basically can be utilized as pay-as-you-go model, you don't have to invest in a full-fledged DR infrastructure. And we have basically helped a lot of customers to just do that. And of course, what about customers who have fully moved to Azure? What about customers who don't have any ounce of on-prem infrastructure and are fully native to Azure, right? We also have sold our solution for customers who are fully native to a public cloud infrastructure. So the whole bottom line here is the adoption to public cloud is indeed increasing in several forms of use cases, in several forms of requirements. We basically see the adoption to Azure is nevertheless growing up. So with that being said, what is the right backup and DR solution that you need to be looking into? The number one thing that I always focus on is to ensure that your solution should be simple. It should be easy to use. And the reason why I say that is because I've seen more than a couple of customers, like a bunch of our customers who were in the past evaluating our solution. They would simply go to our website or subscribe to our solution or simply download our solution and install it within 30 minutes. And they basically reach out to us asking questions. And that is a statement of success in itself, because they really didn't need any of our help to basically deploy our solution and configure it within a span of 30 minutes, right? And that is a huge victory to ensure that, our solution being a scalable or enterprise ready is also extremely simple and easy to use. So that is the number one thing that you have to look out for. Number two is, as I pointed out before, simplicity shouldn't compromise enterprise readiness. Simplicity shouldn't compromise a solution being scalable. You need to have a solution that has the ability to scale up, scale down, or scale up, scale out, and scale across multiple infrastructures, especially when it comes to a hybrid cloud environment. Your solution needs to scale across your enterprise cloud or your on-prem to a public cloud infrastructure. And the third part is about security. Look, as I pointed out before, ransomware attacks have become so common. It's almost like the new norm today. With that being said, when it comes to data security, or especially ransomware security, stable and fortified air gap backups and backup immutability plays a huge role. And you need to ensure that the backup solution that you're investing in has the ability to offer not just air gap backups, but full-fledged backup immutability using worm technology. And and the fourth point that I wanted to talk about here is ensuring that this backup and recovery solution or your data protection solution fully leverages your underlying cloud or even your on-prem platform when it comes to integrating with security policies, or when it comes to leveraging the underlying snapshots. The integration should be so well, tied together, or it should be so good that you shouldn't have any performance impacts on your production environment. And last but not the least, it should be affordable. As I pointed out before, a backup infrastructure is never, if it's equal to the cost of your production environment, or if it's more than expensive than your production environment, then you're doing something wrong here, because you can't waste your budget that is basically meant for your production environment to be based in a backup or data protection infrastructure. That is something, I personally don't believe in that. So with that being said, let's introduce our product, what we offer to this hybrid cloud environment. So our solution is a truly hybrid cloud data protection, data migration, and DR solution that actually helps you to protect all of your on-prem workloads, be it with regards to hosting VMs on VMware or even Nutanix, or when it comes to physical servers. We have the ability to basically protect all of these workloads seamlessly to Azure Cloud. We also protect NAS-based environments such as Isilon or Nutanix files. And again, we have the ability to do backups directly to Azure Blob. And in addition to that, we always leverage our solution to be integrated with every platform in a purpose-built fashion, meaning that we fully integrate with VMware, with Nutanix. We also offer agentless backups of your physical servers, be it Windows or Linux, and we fully integrate with your Azure public cloud platform to ensure that we leverage every goodness of that given platform when it comes to application consistent and crash consistent backups. And in addition to that, when it comes to application consistency, we have our unique patented application aware technology, where we have the ability to automatically discover all of your databases, all of your applications. And we also have a detailed pre-post framework that actually helps you to protect customized applications across all of your VMs or your physical servers. And as always, we offer a full-fledged air gap backup security. We have all of these backup fortification features such as multi-factor authentication, multi-tenancy, network segmentation, a full-fledged at-rest and in-transit and at-rest encryption. And our entire solution basically is delivered via black box architecture, where the access to our solution is only through the front-end UI. You can basically lock all of the backdoor access to ensure that your solution cannot be cracked. In addition to that, we also support backups directly to worm-enabled object storage, which truly ensures backup immutability, meaning that even if that air gap fortress is breached, your backups will still remain immutable as a last line of defense. So let's get into case studies. What good is all of this product showcasing if I really don't showcase the real-time use case or the realistic use cases of our existing customers? So there are two customers that I'd like to talk about. For obvious reasons, I cannot share their names, but I can definitely share what they're doing with our solution. So the first customer that I'd like to highlight here is they're a global law firm, right? They basically have I would say more than approximately 1,500 to 2,000 VMs, if I'm not mistaken, on VMware platform running on Nutanix. And we also have another vendor who's basically responsible for manufacturing 3D printers, scanners, and basically delivering 3D printing service, right? So these vendors, they had a very similar requirement. They basically wanted to ensure that they have a reliable but at the same time cost-efficient way of doing backups, and also leverage or also have a DR strategy in place that wouldn't be as expensive as a production environment. And it was a very tricky situation because they already had a budget in place, and they were basically, trying to make a choice between our solution and a full-fledged DR solution. And at the end of the day, their preference was to basically come up with a cost-efficient solution that delivered a full-scale DR instead of basically spending millions and millions of dollars to have a replicated DR environment for their offsite in one of their offsite data centers. And this was a pretty challenge. I mean, that was one of the biggest challenges, right? I mean, the expensive aspect of it. But the other challenge that they were having was their staff was extremely lean, right? They didn't have a lot of people to basically manage their entire data protection infrastructure, and their compliance was like extremely stringent. And I don't blame them, especially when it comes to like a law firm. Data integrity and data protection plays a huge role, and they have to abide a lot of compliances, and they have to abide a lot of regulations as well. So with that being said, they basically invested in our solution, and they're really happy about it because we were able to reduce their backups and DR costs by 2x by leveraging Azure Blob. So what they basically did was they were doing backups of all of their on-prem infrastructure, all of their VMware VMs and physical servers directly to Azure Blob with the worm functionality turned on, meaning that they were basically able to do backups with with full-fledged immutability, meaning that even if their backups are accessed or by bad actors or by a ransomware attack, nothing can basically do anything with those backups because they're truly immutable. In addition to that, we also delivered a full-fledged air-gap backup security, meaning that they were leveraging all of our multi-tenancy capabilities, role-based access control, network segmentation to ensure that their backups were totally siloed from their production environment. And they really loved the operational simplicity offered by our solution. The UI is so simple and straightforward that the customers, they really didn't need any time to train themselves. I mean, they were pretty much trained during the course of our entire POC. And the best part here was the POC was once the customer agreed to procure our solution, the POC environment was literally turned into their production-ready environment. I mean, all they had to do was simply update their licenses, and that was that, right? And obviously, they were really happy with our hybrid cloud support because, we not only did backups to Azure, but we also provided them the ability to do a failover and a failback to Azure cloud environment. And they're also happy about the fact that they've future-proofed their backup and recovery infrastructure because they also have the ability to migrate their on-prem workloads to Azure, which is on their roadmap. So this is exactly how we help customers, especially when it comes to leveraging or for customers to using Azure platform. We basically help them to do backups to Azure, we help them to migrate to Azure, and we also help customers to protect their workloads on Azure.
Hey, Shiva?
Yep.
This is great. We've got about a minute or so left. I want to answer two key questions. First, Joe from the University of Kansas wanted to know how using HYCU, should that change his grandfather to father to son backup strategy? And then Mary, who runs the SAP application for Eden, wanted to know how HYCU works with SAP data. So we want to make sure you answer those two questions in the next minute or so.
Sure. So to answer the first question, no, you don't have to compromise on the GFS, the grandfather, father, son policies. We do offer the same level of protection if you wanted to basically implement that strategy. As a matter of fact, one of our existing customers basically wanted to do exactly that. They basically wanted to replicate that same GFS backup strategy, but leveraging public cloud infrastructure. And we basically did the same level of GFS capability to public cloud. And yeah, I mean, I'd like to talk more about this, but given the amount of time, I'd just like to give you a short answer. The answer is yes, we could easily replicate that. Number two is
I'll make the introduction later tonight for all these people. And then if you could answer Mary about SAP.
Yeah, sure. We do support the backup and recovery of SAP HANA workloads. We also support integration with backend agent. I'd like to talk more about it. Definitely, Ron, if you can offer us like the formal introduction, I'll share more details about that as well.
I will take care of that. Now, if you could summarize, this is great stuff. Great open talk.
Sure. So as I pointed out before, to provide a quick, excuse me, an architectural overview, HYCU is delivered purely as a service on Azure, where we basically inherit all of your, Azure security policies, meaning that all you have to do is basically get to the Azure marketplace, subscribe to our solution, and we basically have a free 14-day trial. And when you go through that process, we leverage Azure's APIs, and you leveraging the security tokens provided by Azure, we have the ability to discover all of your environments spread across the entire regions, across the entire globe. And we basically have the ability to discover all of your VMs, and we can do backups seamlessly to Azure Blob in an auto-tiered fashion. In addition to that, we also support the ability to do backups of your on-prem workloads directly to Azure Blob. So to summarize, our solution is extremely easy to deploy, maintain, and configure. When you deploy our solution, you don't have to waste your time with painfully long sizing exercises, because if you don't size your solution, your backup and recovery solution can fall flat on its face. But that is not a problem with our solution, because we provide you a full-fledged dynamic scaling capabilities. In addition to that, when it comes to performing backups, we offer incremental forever backups that greatly offer storage efficiency when it comes to storing these backups. And when it comes to recoverability, we have full-fledged options when it comes to recovering entire VMs, to recovering individual files or folders, or recovering individual databases from applications. And as I always say, our solution is ransomware ready. We can ransomware proof your backups by offering full-fledged air-gapped backup and immutable backup capability. And we do offer a common user interface across your on-prem and your public cloud infrastructure for a more seamless experience that requires zero training to adopt your solution into your production environment. And last but not the least, we are fully optimized for your Azure. We are purpose-built for your Azure infrastructure. So if you have any requirements doing backups to Azure or migrating to Azure, or if you are already an Azure customer, please take a look at us, because our solution is truly built for the Azure public cloud. So if you'd like to check more about our solution, please visit us at tryhycu.com. We can actually help you answer any questions that you have. You can basically test our solution. And if you have any questions, please email us at info@hycu.com. And again, if you'd like to know more about our solution and more about our product, you can actually visit us at www.hycu.com.